Okay. So, Representative Govan, we are recording. If you want to just go ahead and take a minute or two to introduce yourself so people know a little bit about you, and then we'll get into the questions.
Okay. I'm State Representative Jerry Govan. I've been a member of the House of Representatives from 1993. First elected in 92, began my term of service in 1993, January of 1993. I'm the senior ranking member of the House Education Committee. I rank second in the body. My background is multifaceted, but most recently I retired in July of this year as County Attendance Supervisor for Orangeburg Consolidated School Districts 3, 4, and 5. I am a certified teacher, certified in early childhood education, and have been so. I have a master's degree in Master's of Arts in Teaching, and I have done shy of about 9 hours of my master's of actually of an EDS Ed Specialist degree in Administration and Leadership. I am a father, grandfather, but most of all, I am the proud parent of 4 lovely daughters, and a wife who is also involved in the education community as a career specialist. And proud to be a member of the South Carolina General Assembly and representing citizens of House District 95.
Great, thank you. Okay, question number 1. What is your opinion of the state of public education in South Carolina today?
I think the state of public education in South Carolina is one that continues to need improvement. We're not there yet. I think that anybody who really follows public education and the trends, the national and the global trends in education, realize that not only South Carolina, but this country is not where it ideally should be when it comes to Western nations. As an educational policy fellow, I had the opportunity to work with a very distinguished group of individuals and travel to Washington to look at what we're doing not only nationally but globally. And I also see a trend I serve on the National Conference of State Legislators Education Committee, and we recently put out a report looking at the conditions of education in this country. So I know without a doubt that we still have a ways to go. And that report, by the way, was no time to lose. So we have a lot of improvements to make. I think we need to make efforts in the area of improving not only teacher quality, but if you're going to talk about teacher quality, you have to talk about teacher support. I think we have to do a better job in terms of preparing our kids for the new global society, the new. And so we still have a ways to go.
Okay. The next question. The last couple of years, the legislature, as you know, has been trying to pass the Ed Reform Bill, and that has sort of taken a hiccup with the current COVID-19 and all of that. So the question is, if reelected and the no Ed Reform Bill passes this year, so, depending on what happens this session, what would be your first step to improve public education in 2021?
Well, the interesting thing about the Education Reform Bill, as one of the co-sponsors of the bill, of course, that bill, the House moved this version over to the Senate. And so the Senate is kind of drug-free in terms of making changes, some of which were not bad changes, were good changes. And when I look at that whole process, and when I signed onto that bill, it was not that it was a perfect bill, because it was far from it. But we needed to do some reform. The problem is we did not have sufficient input from all parties involved, particularly in terms of educators, stakeholder groups, etc. And so one of the things I like to do, you know, what people don't understand who are not educators is that education is transformation. And so what I would do is, upon our return, is I think that we're going to have to revisit some issues. I will share with you that I think some of the things that we are all interested in, reducing testing, increasing teacher pay, and also in terms of looking at making things better for teachers in terms of the classroom. Some of those things were wrapped up in terms of, of what's in the legislature right now that we may not get to. And so what the House has done under the leadership of Joe Lucas, is what we try to do is pass pieces of the reform bill in individual bills over to the Senate. And so some of those may get passed next week. They may take a stab at it, but because of this COVID crisis, everything is up in the air.
Okay. If reelected, what would you work on to change? I'm sorry, let me start over. If reelected, what would you work on to change the? Let me try again. This is it's awkwardly written. If reelected, what would you do to change the funding of public education in South Carolina, or would you work to change how public education is funded? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the ideal situation would be to revoke Act 388. That would certainly change things. And the reason why I say that is because we have basically, when that act was passed, and I'm one of maybe 16 people in the General Assembly, I forgot the exact numbers that voted against Act 388. Everyone ran down that rabbit hole. I'm glad I wasn't one of them. They thought someone was crazy. But the fact of the matter is that we have a very old system, antiquated system in terms of how we fund education in the state. And that was made even more complex in terms of complicated when we passed Act 388, which destabilized funding of public education, which was basically born through property taxes at the local level. That has not worked. And so every time you see a downturn in the economy, then of course that means education, whether it's K-12 or higher education, takes a hit. If you look at the research, basically in westernized countries, because education plays a major portion of the budget, it also becomes the biggest victim when there's a downturn in the economy. So I think that if we could revoke Act 388, that would be great. The fact of the matter is, I don't know if we have the political will isn't there. So what I think we have to do is continue with more creative ways of funding public education. And for that, I think that we're going to have to seriously look at revising the formula in terms of EFA and also dealing with EIA and also looking at tweaking, the system that we currently have in place. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but I think we got to do that because, we're talking about our future with our children.
Okay, thank you. In your opinion, what would a successful accountability system for education in South Carolina look like?
One in which our children can pass any test that is provided by for students in other states and do just as well. I got to tell you, I'm a lifelong learner. I've worked in not only in terms of children, but I've worked in adult education as well. And so I think that the best preparation in terms of for our children, in terms of preparing them for real world experiences, is to be able to give them a strong foundation in reading, being able to read and comprehend, a basic foundation in terms of math, and being able to think strategically and critical thinking, developing those skills. And the reason why I say that is because the traditional way of learning is changing so rapidly. The next generation of jobs that are coming along, that we are preparing using the methods that we're using in terms of educating our kids. Well, that next generation of jobs hasn't even been created yet as a result of artificial intelligence and the changes in the way that not only we receive education, but in terms of what we're asking people to do. So it's again, I think we're going to have to adapt, and I believe that a strong educational system that adheres to those points is the one that will be most productive in helping our citizens, our children, be prepared for the future.
Thank you. So those are all the questions that we have. Is there anything before we end the recording that you would like for our community to know? And our community is not only just teachers and educators, but people who feel strongly about protecting public education.
Well, I think that we're at a crossroads in this country. I think we have to be realistic with the fact that public education should mean excellence in education, and that you have to invest in it. This idea that people have been proposing in terms of, I'm not a strong proponent of vouchers. I've never been. I think that basically what we've done is basically split away resources that we could use to improve our public education system and put those resources other places. I know that some folks have agendas in terms of why they do that, but the bottom line is this: a rising boat raises all parties. And so if you think about it, then we need the more educated and a more strong public education system, I think brings unanimous a lot of benefit to our society in general. And I don't think we need to divide the resources to make that happen. Let's make all public educational systems quality educational systems, particularly at the local educational level, and help these students do all that they can do.
Well, good. Representative Govan, thank you so much for your time. That's all that we had. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording if that's okay with you.
That's fine. And thank you so much. I really have enjoyed talking with you.